Hello, everybody, and welcome to WordPress Wednesday. If you love WordPress as much as we do, let us know in the comments. So I'm here with, I pointed to the right way because it's always like a mirror, isn't it? I'm here with Shannon Wen, and she is a WordPress pro. And every Wednesday, we are going to be talking about WordPress, which is our bread and butter, and it's what we love. But we are going to be giving you an actionable kind of tip that you can take away and do and learn from and thrive. That's really all we want to do today. So Shannon, thanks so much for joining me live on WordPress Wednesday. Today, we're going to talk about domains, because if you want to have a website for yourself, or if you're building a website for a client, what do you need, Shannon?
Need a domain name.
And if you're going to be building a website for yourself or for a client, what platform should you use, Shannon?
What platform should you use? WordPress?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So that's specifically what we're going to talk about. But really, domains are kind of across the board. They're not specific to WordPress, but still, using WordPress is great. Now, one caveat that we want to make, because we just said if you are building a website for yourself or building a website for a client, you need a domain. Now, that being said, Shannon, can you explain why, like the difference between getting a domain name for yourself and getting a domain name for a client? Can you explain that very quickly so we're super clear up front about who owns what?
Yeah. So your domain name is your identity, and it's very personal to you, and it's very personal to your client. So you want your client to buy their own domain name, because people leave jobs and people move around, and if you suddenly find yourself not able to find out who has your domain name, then that can cause a lot of problems. So you definitely want your client to maintain control and buy their own domain name and have all of the login credentials and everything, so that they can do that. And then of course you, for your own personal site, would buy your own domain name for that.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so if you're building your own website, buy your own domain name. If you're building a website for a client, make sure that you can walk them through the steps of how to buy their own domain name. But that's really, really important, that distinction there. So thank you very much, Shannon. All right, so if someone were to want to buy a domain name, where would you recommend they go to even start the process?
Sure. So you want to buy from a reputable domain name provider, and there's a lot of big names out there: GoDaddy, Namecheap, Google Domains, that type of thing. The price is going to be very similar between all of them, and I mean, you can search for domain names on any one of these, and you don't have to buy it through them. You could buy it from somebody else, but you definitely want to get one of sort of the bigger domain name providers like that. So I mean, you can Google that and sort of find out what names sort of rise to the top there. But I've used Google for a number of years now. I've used GoDaddy for even longer than that, and recently just started with Namecheap on one of my domains. So you may just want to kind of look and see what interface looks easiest for you, and that kind of thing, because that will be maybe an important part of your choice. So
What
like I said,
about
the domain names are going to be pretty similarly priced. So that shouldn't be a huge issue choosing between them.
What about if someone, and we're going to be talking about WordPress hosting on a different Wednesday, but what if someone goes to buy WordPress hosting and they offer the domain name as a package? What would you recommend there?
I would recommend that they keep the domain name separate from their hosting package. It just gets very complicated if you decide you want to change your hosting package later on, which is very common. Then you've got to worry about trying to change your domain name over, or trying to hook it up with this provider who they aren't always very cooperative towards trying to, hook you up to a different hosting service now, since you've bought your domain name through them with the hosting. So I totally recommend that you buy the domain name from a domain name host, and leave that separate from your WordPress hosting.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at, you mentioned Google Domains, Namecheap, and GoDaddy. So let's take a look at those, and I'll quickly share my screen. We can look through those and even search for a domain so you can kind of see what that looks like. And then we'll wrap up. All right, if I click here, there we go. Perfect. So the first one we've got is Google Domains. Now, if you already use Google Suite for everything else, then it might make sense to use Google Domains. Personally, if I were to go back in time, I would have started with Google Domains. But back in time, I started with GoDaddy as a domain name registrar, and that's where all of mine are, which is fine. But I just really like Google, so I probably, if I were to go back in time, it's not worth me moving them. It's not that big of a deal. But I'm a big fan of Google Domains. And then the one we both mentioned, GoDaddy, they have, it's another big domain registrar where you can buy a domain. Now, the thing about this is when you buy a domain through GoDaddy, they will probably try to sell you on other things like build a website with us. Don't do that. Only buy the domain, but nothing else. Same with Google Domains and Namecheap. That's the other one. Those are probably the three big domain name registrars. There's tons, but these are really popular ones. They're reputable. So those are all really good ones to check out. So let's search for a domain. Let's come up with a fun domain to search for. Is Shannon Wynn available?
It shouldn't be.
Do you own it?
I do own it.
Okay, well, there we go. Let's see. Yep, shannonwynn.com is not available because Shannon owns it. Now, real quick so what if someone has a business name and they put it in and the .com is not available? What would you recommend in that instance?
Yeah, you kind of have a couple of options. You can go with, there are other .co is fairly popular for like tech type of companies. .io is kind of popular. I mean, you could go with .net. .org I would leave for like if it's a nonprofit or something like that. It's a little bit sort of a little bit different scenario. But also you may look into, like, my business is called Purple Bunny Web Solutions, and I tried to get purplebunny.com and it was not available, and it was just a half put together WordPress site. So I ended up just sort of altering it and going with purplebunnyweb.com as opposed to sort of trying to go with an alternate ending. Obviously, the most popular one is going to be .com, that people are going to, sort of search for it. If they know your company name, they're going to put in yourcompanyname.com and sort of see there. So if you can get a .com that's optimal, and the prices are also going to vary between the different ones. That may also play into it.
Awesome. All right. And then the one last thing I want to finish on is when you go through and buy your domain, it is going to ask you, do you want like the security protection? Do you want your name and address and phone number to be hidden? I always get that. I think some of these, it might come with it included in the price. I know with GoDaddy, it does not come included. So I always pay that extra, whatever that amount is, to get that extra protection, because I don't want my name and phone number and email and home address out there in the world for people to find. So I do add that on, but that's something else you could compare when you're looking at the different domain registrars, is what comes included in that price. And if you find a domain that you really want, shannonwinnisthebest.com, which if you don't own that, you should. How much does it cost to get everything that you want on those three websites, Namecheap, GoDaddy, and Google Domains, and then decide from there which one you want. Now, we're not going to cover today how to hook up your website with your domain because that's a wider conversation and will take more time than we want to spend today. We just wanted to cover domains and all the questions that we see the most from our students who are asking about domains and all the things that come up as you're going through the buying process. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions about WordPress, please let us know below. And if you want to learn more about WordPress, we do have a course called WP Rockstar. We've got thousands of very happy students. Feel free to Google it and check it out. But anything else you want to learn regarding WordPress, let us know in the comments. We will cover it next week on our WordPress Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.